Thank you, Matt, for being our speaker today. And I will pass the baton to you. And yeah, it's your stage.
All right, thank you so much. I'm going to jump over to my other identity here in Zoom and jump up to my other screens to make it a little easier for me to present. So just give me a second there. I'll be right over.
Just going to say I'm really enjoying Ryan's video stream of the cows there. It's very serene.
Yeah, it's nice up here in the mountains, wherever I am.
All right, how are we looking, everyone? Can we see the slides okay? And hear me? Can you hear me okay? How's my volume?
Sounds good.
Awesome, thank you. All right, so yeah, today I just kind of want to give a quick overview of how I'm thinking about the immersive web these days. What is it? Why is it important? And then I also want to jump into one part of the immersive web, which is Hubs, and just talk about sort of what is Hubs, what is Mozilla Hubs, sort of some of its features, and then get into building 3D social spaces in Hubs. I won't do like a full workshop, but I want to just give everyone kind of a high-level overview of what it looks like to jump into Blender and then have that deployed to a website for you. And then all of the notes, the links are all in this presentation itself. So I did post a link in Zoom, and you could also use this QR code to jump into that too as well. So if there's anything you want to dive in deeper to, I have a lot of links throughout these slides.
Matt, I don't know, it's just me. I just saw partial of the screen. Is that just me? Is that any way that we can see the full screen?
Oh, okay.
I think the screen is a little oversized. Maybe it's just me. Yeah.
I don't know. It looks fine for me. I'm
Oh,
seeing.
it looks fine. Okay.
Yeah,
it looks okay on my end.
Okay, then that's my problem. No worries. Yeah, keep going.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, so what am I talking about with the immersive web? It's just basically anything that lives in a web page. It's just the web. We have web standards. We have a immersive web group at the W3C, and it relates to AR, VR, or mixed reality. And I know this is an XR group, so I don't think we need to go into it too much, but I would like to just provide a few examples of what this means specifically on the web. So here's a project I did a while back where I took tags, like image tags, and then this is a QR code that you just scan with your phone, and then you can get these images of different Van Gogh pieces to display art. And that was done for a charity event here in the Monterey Peninsula where I live in Pebble Beach. And it was just sort of a novelty, thing we added to this dinner table. But you can get more information about how the whole thing went and a little insight into how I built it at the post there. But yeah, when we're talking about AR, it's just about overlaying information into the real world, right? And then there's another sort of interesting way to use AR. And I think that this is getting more interesting with things like color pass-through. This demo is on a Quest 2, so no color yet, but Quest 3 will have color, and a lot of these newer headsets, the Vive Elite, Quest Pro, right, we get color pass-through. And the basic idea here is, can we take a recipe blog and then just grab the ingredients from that and take it with us so that we can go cook with hands-free, using hands tracking, and just have those ingredients or those directions as a reference. So I still need to put a lot of work into this to make it actually, the UI look good and be more functional and things like that. But just kind of a concept I was playing with, because I'm really looking at, how can we create use cases that are broadly, useful to folks, or things that we might actually imagine being real as a broad stroke. Everyone can use this sort of thing. Now with VR, things have been getting interesting with WebXR. So, we had WebVR like 2018, and then now it's since evolved into the WebXR API. And I think Paradowski did a really good job recently in sort of making a web app that sort of feels like a native VR app, a little more so than perhaps other experiences that we've seen so far. And they did this sort of putt, what are those called, like walkabout putt kind of thing. But they built this with A-Frame, which is a JavaScript library, an open source JavaScript library, and yeah, I think this is there's a whole post on this too where you can check it out yourself. But I think this is really like a good example of how we're evolving, because 3 years ago, we didn't really see anything to this level with this polish. And we have another example of this too with Project Flowerbed, which is which Meta put together for us, and they've open sourced this code. And it's just another sort of demo to explore what we can do with these WebXR VR experiences. And again, that's linked in that post. And then when we're talking about XR, there's also the concept of mixed reality, right? Which is where the objects are interacting with different things in the room. And this is very, very new, very bleeding edge on the web. But this is called Spatial Fusion, and it was built by a couple of design agencies. And the thing I want to highlight here, you can see how that little, I don't know what we call that, the space vacuum is bouncing off of the desk, right? So we know we have a sense of where objects are in the room, and we can interact with those objects. All right, so that's a kind of a high-level overview of AR, VR, and XR on the web. How are we doing so far?
Good.
Yeah, all right. So why should we care about all this, right? Like it's, we could argue like, doesn't even compare to desktop VR, right? I've heard a lot of criticisms around, the graphics and performance, and why should we even bother with the immersive web? Well, I think the big draws for me are we have the freedom to publish and distribute our creations directly and to reach people very directly that way. So we're not constrained by like an app store, or we're not like publishing in any walled gardens or things like that. And it's accessible, right? Like, so we could have a Linux desktop, a Mac, a Windows desktop, a watch, anything with a modern browser can be part of the experience. And I think in regards to that, like this is just a whole different creative medium that we haven't really explored fully. So, the idea, especially when you talk about the network part to this, someone's experience on their watch can interact with someone else's experience in a headset, and you can have all this crossover between platforms, which is super interesting to me. All right, so like we've sort of identified this like immersive web landscape. This app, which I really care about, like I work on the Hubs team, and before I worked on the Hubs team, I was drawn to it for a couple of reasons. But what it is it's basically it's just social 3D spaces that exist in the web page, where you can invite people into the space and share it across the web. For me, like the draw for me was really its extensibility, because it's open source. You can just grab the code, add your own features, and deploy it yourself, and even host it yourself. You get all these features just built in right away that you don't have to worry about as a programmer. But that said, it's not super easy maybe to do, and takes a lot of work, and so there's there are issues there, but and really what drew me into is just the whole community. So I started very much in the Hubs community and doing events and Hubs and things during COVID, and that's kind of how I got into it. So here's what Hubs looks like in desktop on the top, and then on the bottom is a recording in a Quest 2 in headset. And the bottom one is a photogrammetry scan by a photogrammetry artist called Mikko out of Finland. and just does really incredible work. We have a whole post on that in Creator Labs, and you can see like there's a mirror component in there, and I'm a Firebox nightly bot waving at you. And then on the right is the mobile view, and that was taken from a Samsung Galaxy, like one of the newer ones, and you can see it has a virtual thumbstick there. So you use that to move around, and then you can touch the screen to look in different directions. By default, we have 2 thumbsticks, but I personally like to use the touchscreen for look. So what we can do right now, I think that might be fun, is maybe jump into a room. So I have a demo room set up for us, just so we can try this on our own. You can scan the QR code if you want to come in on and try mobile, or you can just click the link from the slides that I shared there. And what's really interesting here is that you can, and I see some people maybe jumping in, I just took this room and embedded it into the slides directly, because these slides are just web pages and they accept iframes. We got a little music in here. So yeah, and I can see folks jumping in now, which is great. So one thing with this embed is I could take this, you could do this in your own homepage. And I think this is a really underutilized feature in Hubs, is you can take any room and just embed it into your website. So you can have your homepage just be a Hubs room, and do things that way. I'm gonna, oh, I can't get, oh, yeah. Sorry, I have this music. It's great, but I'm going to turn down my own media volume a little bit.
Matt, I think there's somebody who wants the link for what you are showing. It looks so good. And can I ask you a question? If I want to build a beautiful scene like what you are building right now in Mozilla Hub, how can I do it? Can I use Unity and put Sketchfab like a free, or I create something and I just slot in, or I have to build brick by brick using Mozilla Hubs tools and create something?
Yes, that is a great question. So this scene was built by Christian, one of the Hubs team artists, and he built it in Blender. So you could take whatever assets you'd like into Blender, and use our Blender add-on, which I'll go into. I'll show you like a brief high level of how that works in a little bit. And then there are certain special components here. Oh, I love that someone causes the alien. There are certain high level components here that you can drop into to the GLTF, and it's basically just adding a string to the GLTF that says, okay, this is where a waypoint should be, which if you hold down spacebar in the room, which I'll do right now, you can see these are all waypoints, and waypoints just are positions that you can jump to. So if you could try that if you're in the room with me now. If you just hold down spacebar on desktop, you'll be able to kind of jump around the space to different waypoints. So a waypoint is just one component, one example of a component that we have that you'd be able to add with the Blender add-on directly into Blender. Oh yay, Christy's here too. Nice. Welcome, Christy. Yeah, I see Jordan's jumping around, and Shelldeck, who has a great taco avatar, is jumping around too. We have Mira, who's a hot dog. Very nice. Welcome, Mira. Right. So yeah, and a couple features I want to kind of point out too is you can take 3D models into the scene. There's a pen tool. You can draw. You can take GIFs, images, videos directly into this room. Welcome, King Eider. Yep. So yeah, if you don't have an account already set up, you'll get this nonsensical name just to start with. But one of the that's another great thing about Hubs, I think, is that you can just jump into the room without having to have an account or really do any sort of login or anything like that. So just very easy.
Jim has a question.
Yes.
I was just wondering if there's an option for stereoscopic rendering.
Yes. So when you first enter the room, there's an option for entering on a device.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so yeah, you could get that like for cardboard or something like that, right? Is that kind of where? What you're
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
something
yeah,
like that. Yeah.
yeah. And you so that is an option. However, it doesn't work in Safari. So you'd have to, and I'm not sure what the status is these days on iPhones generally. I think it only works in Android right now.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's a limitation just of Apple of Safari.
Okay.
So yeah, not a lot we can do
So
there.
probably if you're using Chrome or something like that, it would work.
Yes, yeah, and on an Android, yeah. So yeah, that is a bit limiting, but yeah, you can use cardboard and do that. And then another limitation there is you would want to have a controller. Hubs does work with like standard Xbox controllers and a wide range of sort of USB gamepads will work in Hubs, but you will need something to help you navigate in that case.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, great. And I see like a lot of others joining the pool party here, and that's lovely. Yep, we got Jordan in a Ready Player Me avatar. Very nice. Great. Any more questions about Hubs before we jump out of the room here?
I actually do have one question, because again, I'm used to Unity's workflow. How do you handle things like colliders? Like, obviously there's invisible barriers and things. I'm not, I'm not moving just anywhere. How is that mechanic handled?
Yes. So if you look, see how like my avatar is rising up with these stairs and going down with these stairs.
Yeah.
And then I'm hopefully not colliding over this. So all of it, I found a little bug in the nav mesh. So all of this is dictated by the nav mesh.
Right.
So yeah.
You built a separate collider layer as the nav mesh, I assume.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. So you'll need to have that mesh defined in your Blender file so that you know like where the avatars can and can't go. Yeah. Otherwise, we'll just be like flying through walls and things.
Is there a nav mesh setting in Blender, or is that just something done by name of the layer?
All it is a name. Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So you're just taking that. Yeah, you're just saying, hey, this mesh, this is our nav mesh.
Easy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So like one thing we want to add to the Blender add-on is in Spoke, we have a tool that will just automatically create a nav mesh for you. And if you're coming from Unity, it's like, yeah, you have all these fancy tools like already, right? Like, and it's really nice, but we don't have all of those shiny tools yet. But we'd really like to get there. And one PR we had recently was about kind of doing auto nav mesh. Because right now, basically you take the knife tool and you're just like cutting out.
Well, no, actually, we build a separate simple nav mesh on top of ours usually to dictate where people are going and keep the geo down. I don't generally use like the built-in Pathfinder tools and all that stuff because we want to usually dictate exactly where people are going. So it's great to hear that you guys
excellent.
are doing it that way.
Yeah, great.
Yeah, it's basically just gonna be like, boop, there we go.
Yeah.
Nice.
Excellent. Yeah, that's great to hear. Yeah, so we would like to have like some tools like that, but yeah, right now it's pretty manual, which might not be a bad thing, right? Because there may be situations, but like I don't know if we could, for example, go up on the roof here. I'm not sure if Christian did nav mesh up there, but yeah, if the artist decided to do that, we could, and you could teleport with right click if you're on desktop. You can kind of try to play around and see where you can go. But
I do want to know one more thing about the nav mesh. Is it possible to have multiple separate pieces, maybe all under a parented layer that is the nav mesh, or does it all have to be one joined thing?
It should be one joined thing. Yeah. So we don't currently support multiple nav meshes, and you also can't like animate the nav mesh or anything like that.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So like for platforms, but I think with this new, we'll get into this later, but like with some of the new interactivity stuff, there are ways we could potentially get around all that.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another fun feature, if you press your keypad, you can put some emojis out into the world. So 1 through 5 will give you all these emojis. And you can grab those and toss them around too if you'd like.
Very cool.
Yeah. All right. So just in the interest of time, let's keep things moving. Thank you so much for jumping into the room with me. It's so fun to see everybody moving around and joining the pool party we just had. I'd like to take some time too to give you just some background in how people are, like, what are people actually doing with this quirky technology? What have we done? What are some useful things that we've seen? And I think this will be generally, I hope, interesting to folks building in the XR space generally. So the first kind of use case I'd like to highlight for you all is this medical training case from NYU Langdon Health Grossman School of Medicine. And Greg Dornsville, who is the technologist that sort of adapted a lot of the ideas to work in Hubs, has been working with Hubs for years now. And then Kristen Ramirez is like anatomist, instructional. She does like the instructional design part and is just an expert in her field. And I think when we get these like really specialized domain knowledge and we combine them with people that know how to manipulate 3D spaces and create these experiences, I think we get some really nice results from that. And there's a link here to a live stream recording of Greg sort of breaking down their whole process and just telling you about what they learned over the last couple of years doing this. But here's like one example of why they were successful is they're very intentional when they design for VR, and you can see like that's the class doing their modules and things. But they have, the first thing they do is they get students set up in an orientation scene. So they've built a whole scene whose only purpose is to get them acclimated to the features and let them know what they can do. So like one example here, they came up with this. I thought this was so clever. They did like a connect the dots to teach them about how to use the pen tool. Because I think they have a couple activities in other modules where they have them use the pen tool. And there's a whole, Heather Dodds did a whole piece on this on our community blog, if you want to dive into that as well. But yeah, really interesting what they've done with medical training. We've seen a lot of examples of conferences done, and these usually work out nice because of the accessible nature. You can just send these links to everybody and have people jump in and interact. And especially with this one, it's about architecture and 3D media and things, so it's very applicable and useful for Hubs. The really interesting thing about the Romvelten festival was it was entirely self-hosted. So they just took the Hubs code, they ran it on their own servers, they added a couple extra features that they needed to handle the 700 attendees. Like they had to, because our room capacity is like 25 to 30 people, so they had to do some clever things there to help 700 people navigate the conference well. And there's a link to a post there that talks about how they manage that. The next one, remote classrooms. We just published this post yesterday, and if you are doing anything in higher ed with 3D spaces, this post is like gold. Gary just gives us so many insights, and he has done such a great job of really building like a case for doing this, the remote classroom use case. One thing he noticed is he gets really great engagement from the students. He gets way better attendance than when they do like Zoom. And he's been doing this for a couple of years now. So if you want like years of Professor Gary's experience condensed into one post, that's the one to check out. Another interesting one from Believer. It's an agency doing a lot of custom Hubs work in Korea, where they have this like campus map and you can jump into different social spaces there. So yes, yeah.
For example, if I want to create XReality Academy types of like in Mozilla Hub, like there's a space. Is there any like default templates and I just need to slap my logo, or I have to kind of purchase something from like a Blender file and put in and put my logo in? I don't know, like what do you suggest? Like if somebody wants to create their like a school or yeah.
Yeah, so right now, so there's like the past year, the Hubs team has been focused on finding a way to productize Hubs. In addition to offering it for free, which we've always done for 5 years, we do need some sort of revenue stream to just kind of keep Hubs going. And what we're exploring right now is a subscription service that allows you to host your own subdomain of a custom hubs. So you have your own instance of hubs with your own avatars, your own scenes, and we have different like avatar packs and scene packs that you could preload into your space. And then that exists on a subdomain, like it could be like Dom's space at myhubs.com or something, right? So that's with the subscription. We have a couple other product offerings coming out soon that we're working on that we'll announce within the next month or so. So yeah, look out for those. But that's right now is the best way to just like get something that's distinctly branded for you, because you could throw up your own brands there. You could have the room iframed, like your homepage could just be the room, and you can have that set up in like 10 minutes. So it's really fast, easy way to get set up and get kind of, because you might not want all the stuff like the Mozilla Hubs instance has like a ton of avatars and scenes and the domain and the branding and all that. So yeah, if you want your own thing, it's a great way to get that set up.
Can I ask you what's the difference between Horizon World and the Mozilla Hub? I know, like, as far as I know, Horizon probably pretty soon will integrate the URL and the more like the web XR, and the Mozilla Hub is the other way, start with the web. So what's the experience? Because I know that, for example, if I want to jump in, is that any way that I can jump in wearing VR headset and having an immersive experience, or I will see a website surrounded me when I open inside my VR browser? It's just like a 2D browser of the Mozilla Hub in 2D.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the room link directly, the flow will still be, I'm in a 2D browser, and then you have to enter WebXR, right? There is still that step. Yeah. So it's not so seamless. Like I put on my headset and then I'm instantly in a 3D world. There still is that like flow. There's that login flow, which I think is like 1, 2, or 3 clicks. So we still have that kind of barrier to just going directly into 3D. But the big difference is, with Horizons, I mean, one major thing that pops out to me is probably our data collection policies are very different. And there's, I'm not sure if are they going in like to a no download, like you don't have to download any apps? Is that sort of where they're going, like a fully web version?
As far as I know, that if you want to build a world in Horizon, it's brick by brick. It has a tool, and you have to build, kind of like drag your box, and it's not really like I can build something in Blender, which means that I probably can have some better model. We need to use the tools that Horizon provide to build the world. So yeah, so that's why I like Mozilla Hub, because how can somebody who has the time, and it takes some 3D training to build a house that looks like a house. So yeah, so I think Mozilla did a pretty good work. And yeah, I mean, as for Horizon, I think it probably limited to a lot of kind of default set. But yeah, but I would kind of I like the 2D web more than default in VR, because not many people has the headset. Even though right now it has been almost 10 years, but VR headset still not really like for the majority of people. So yeah, I would really think start from something that everyone have, and then slowly migrate to the headset one. I think that's a smart move.
Yeah, yeah, and another difference I just thought of is we don't have a way to build directly in VR in hubs, but I know I believe you can with Horizon Worlds, right? But yeah, they're limited to that block set for now. Yeah, and you could
You
throw up.
have to.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so that is a huge differentiation there, for sure.
I think Austin has a question, right? Do you want to?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What? Me?
Yeah, I saw you post like a water effects.
Oh, Anil had asked about the render. Well, I didn't want to interrupt the presentation. I have a question for later on that particular
Oh, okay.
pool effect shader, but we can get to it later.
Yeah. How they did the refraction stuff with the.
No, I know how to write a
Oh, you
shader.
know.
I just want to know how to apply a shader to a non-game engine based world like that. Like,
Yeah.
that's all.
Yeah. There's a little tricks that Christian did. Yeah, we could talk about it. And when I get to the Blender part, I'll mention it for sure.
Cool.
So yeah, the brand experiences. That's another use case we've seen. This is one from Sanrio, that Hello Kitty, and this was done by Gugenka, who does a lot of. They're based out of Japan, and they do a lot of interesting work with VR chat and hubs. And then Major League Baseball. Yeah, we had a couple years ago. Rem5 did a collaboration with the Twins, the Minnesota Twins, and they did this really nice fan meet and greet where they had baseball players and announcers come in. Also a really fun one. This is, if anyone's familiar with Black Clover, this is another kind of promotional brand sort of advertisement they did with, and I think the actual event was in VR chat, but they chose to use this hub-based, web-based thing to kind of promote the event because they knew it's just easier for people to jump in. Finally, road safety. This is another one I thought was really cool. Solar Flare Studio built this road safety for kids training, and of course it's kids. So yeah, we're not putting kids in VR headsets. I think the recommendation is like 12 or older, or 13 or older, or something like that. But yeah, I guess it's available to like every first and second grader in Ireland. And I see Jim has his hands raised. Would you like to ask a question, Jim?
Yeah, I was just wondering how many users you're getting to these. Like, for example, the Major League Baseball one, that was probably fairly popular. Do you know how many users or how many visitors you had?
I don't know, because so this is the challenging thing with hubs, because we're just like this open source product and anybody can just grab it and deploy it. We have a really hard time understanding the number of people going to these things. Like we'd have to ask Rem5 for that data. So yeah, I'm sure Rem5 had some analytics built in, and we can know like how. And this was featured on the MLB website, so I'm sure it did pretty well. Gugunka is another one. They built a platform for NTT, which is this Japanese telecom, and they show the unique views on each room. And some of those rooms have like 700,000 views or 1 million people going into them, and these are all like hubs based things, but we don't have an aggregate like in that way. We know for Mozilla's particular free instance, we have data there, but yeah, we don't have with all of these different projects that just like are basically unrelated, and we don't capture any data. So it's really hard to know, but that's a great question. Like, yeah, how many people are using these? And I would like be willing to bet that in like hubs is like very much like not very known, but I think it's probably one of the more ubiquitous WebXR platforms out there. But because it's open source and anyone can grab it, yeah, we just don't really have good data on that.
So it sounds like, well, it has an advantage over headsets in that anybody can go to it, and you don't have to promote it ahead of time, in the sense that if you just have a web page, when people visit the web page, they see it and they can enter it.
Exactly.
So it sounds like you have the potential for getting a lot more visitors than you would with a headset based item, but it sounds like you don't have any sort of analytics that are built into your system.
Yes, and that's very intentional because of Mozilla's privacy stance.
Yeah.
Yeah, we also didn't set up any public rooms for similar privacy reasons. because we didn't want that sort of nightmare of trying to moderate public spaces, and we, that we're responsible for. So that's another reason why it's like the rooms, like we have a distinction between spaces and rooms, and like the room links are typically privately shared, and the spaces can be, the scenes, you can create rooms from the scene. So that's sort of how we've always operated, for better or worse.
Do you have or enforce any restrictions on the people that are creating their own little hubs?
We do have a content policy, which we outline in our GitHub. So, but the restrictions are I'd say pretty minimal. We don't want like hate groups making hosting things on hubs, or things like that, and like pornography and stuff like that is not really is not invited onto the platform. So we won't host those things. That being said, they could also potentially self-host some of this, and I don't think we'd have much legal ground to moderate any of that. But yeah, on the Hubs instance itself, we do have a policies around what content can go on.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Yeah, great questions. All right, so I know, wow, we're already at 10:50 already. So I want to get into just kind of like what this looks like, and this will answer some of the earlier questions of what this like Blender build actually looks like. So Blender, for those of you that don't know, their mission is to get the world's best 3D CG technology into the hands of artists as free and open source software, with a vision that everyone should be able to create this stuff and have a means to access the markets, right? So they should also be able to like create this stuff so they can sell it, so they can become employed and all of that good stuff. So yeah, I love Blender. I think it's a great tool. I sort of got into it after 2.8, which is where they updated the UI. So I was a late, not an early adopter or anything, but and also very late to 3D. I've only been doing 3D for a couple of years now. But yeah, great tool. And the Hubs team has a Blender add-on. So this just allows you to take your Blender thing and dump it out to the web very quickly. So for this little example space I set up for us, I have anyone heard of Quaternius? It's a 3D artist creator. They put out these great asset packs where they're very they'll have like one texture atlas, so they're low poly and they're great to use in Hubs. So I took one of their recent asset packs and just brought it into Blender. I grabbed the Blender add-on, which I have a link to there, and installed it. And then I also like to use the Polyhaven asset browser for HDRIs. It's just a really convenient way to quickly drop an HDRI into your scene. And then you can use that for an environment map or a background in your hub scene. But they have like up to 8K resolution. We're not going to be doing that for our web scenes. I like to keep it to like 1K. And a lot of their assets are a little on the high poly side and things like that. So not all usable, but I love just like the ease of use and what they've set up there. I think it's like $30 on the store there, the Blender store. And all right, can everyone now see my Blender screen? Yes.
Yes.
All right, so yeah, this is it's a sushi restaurant asset pack, and you can see it has just this one atlas, which is beautiful. So it's we're getting really good performance out of this. And I just started messing around with this, so you can see everything's all over the place. And here's my one AI shout out for us. I recently installed the GPT add-on that lets you plug in your ChatGPT API key and then make prompts that lets you do things. So I was just kind of messing around with bringing in all these assets and having GPT organize them for me, and it put them in this line for me, and then I generated this floor from it, from text prompts and things like that. So I'm really excited about those. It's a bit too intentional for me right now and slow to do. It's probably easier just to build it myself at this point. But yeah, definitely will be playing with that more in the future. But just for now, I have this unfinished sort of little space here that I made with the assets. And let's go to the layout. We got a bunch of Zoom stuff in my way. Okay. So yeah, and this is the HDRIs from Polyhaven, and yeah, I love these because you just drag them in, and you can check out the differences and play with that. And where we actually add those in are down here, which it might be hard to see, but we have like these little scene properties, and we can bring in the environment map, and this will give us image-based lighting in the scene. For light maps, we want to bake the lighting, and that's a whole nother thing that I'm not going to get into at all for this. But let's just, as an example, we'll just take this, and let's say like what we were talking about with Cause earlier was this idea of like the nav mesh. Oh, whoops, and let me delete that. Let's get the cursor over here. And so for this scene to work, so that we can like walk on it, I need a nav mesh. So I'll just make a really simple one right now. That's not going to be great for us, but it'll be fine for the demonstration. So what I'm saying is like, okay, I have this scene. I want my avatars to be able to walk on this thing. So what that looks like with the Hubs add-on is we go down to we have all these components here, and we'll just add we have to find the nav mesh component. And then we also don't want this like gray plane to be visible on the scene. So we have another component for that in Hubs, which is called the visible component. And I'll just check that off. So when we export this, the GLTF will go, okay, I know that this is where they want the navigation mesh to be, and I don't want it to be seen in the scene, right? So I'll select all that and export my GLTF. And I just selected all these other things too, and that's fine. So they'll be in the scene. But let's see what that looks like now if I share my browser. So we'll go into Spoke, and this is the tool that you use for building scenes in Hubs. And I'll go to New Project, Import from Blender. And since I already have that, this is a really important part, is you can't just make an empty project in Spoke. You have to use this Import from Blender when we're doing a Blender project. But let's go back to, I already have a test scene up, so I'm going to use this. So you'll pick a scene preview, you'll name it, and then you'll add the file that you just saved. Then you'll hit update. I already have one here, and then this is what you'll get once you get it published to the web. So I didn't put a background, so it's just white. But we have just this basic scene, and we're kind of flying around because we don't have a nav mesh. And yep.
How do you handle backgrounds actually?
Yes. So for backgrounds, we have in that little scene, in the scene properties, we have this background image, and you can see mine. I don't know if you can see that actually. I'm not really sure how is it Control Plus to zoom in? I don't know. I know there's a way you can like zoom in.
It's there, yeah.
Okay, yeah. So you can see the background image. So I have not selected one, but you could use any image for that. I could just select the this again, but it's another 1K HDR, and it doesn't have to be a HDR. It could just be something a little smaller and better for performance. But yeah, let's actually export that and see what it looks like. Yep. So moving back to the scene now. So I have this debug local scene attached. So there's a way you could just, if you wanted to iterate on your scene, you can just drag the GLB directly into your web page. And you can see that now we have that background image, right? And we also have the nav mesh. And you can see, like, remember how that plane was like just this little circle? You can see I'm getting stopped right here, right? So
it's nice that it doesn't just fall right off like that.
Yeah, and it was yeah, and I mean, just making the change. We'll go back. We can make another change. Remember we talked about waypoints. So let's say we want a waypoint over here on this chair. I'll just add. I'm going to add like an empty so that we have something something there that we could attach the component to, and then we'll go into, oh, I hid my properties. Okay, and then we'll add a waypoint. And now, since we have like the latest release, I'm like really too excited about this. But we have actual images of the Hubs component in Blender now. We have these gizmos, so you can see like which way it will be oriented and things like that.
That's great.
And then we'll export that and go back to our scene. And since I'm doing this debug local scene, I can just drag that thing we just exported into the window. And I should be able to see that change that we made right away. If it worked, let's see. Oh, no, it didn't work. All right, well, because it's a live demo, I did something wrong. But you should be able to see that change. And I don't know, maybe I picked the wrong object just now, but yeah, that's the basic concept is that.
Right on. Nice.
Yeah. But cursive.
Yeah, can I ask you how can I create interactions? For example, like some gamification or some interactions when people press that button and something will show up.
Perfect segue. Yeah, thank you for that, Dom. So that's exactly what I hope we get into. So there's a question right now of like, is this the future of the Blender workflow? And you could see that this is something that our artist Jim made, and he's only using Blender to make this, using behavior graph like Blender nodes, like you would do in Unreal Blueprint engine. You know, the blueprints, or maybe like Udon in or any kind of visual scripting language. So he set up this whole scene just using that with the interactions. So he's changing materials on press. He's controlling animations, and he's assigning like physics to different things, and yeah, so that you can basically have this claw game. But now this is all experimental, so we still haven't worked out. There's a lot to work out with this, but I'm very hopeful of this as like an experience engine and as a way, you know, to do things like completely from Blender straight into Hubs. And let's give you another example. Here is the vending machine Jim made. He made this in an afternoon, and for me, you know, thinking about how hard this would be to build. Just like even with like some of the great libraries we have, like React Fiber, like this would still be like a considerable amount of work to make happen, and Jim managed to do this in an afternoon. So this is all very promising, and you know, if we can get this networked, you know, working well in VR and multiplayer, I can just see so many possibilities for this. And here's what the nodes look like for the this is part of the crane. So you're just like, you know, telling it, okay, this is what happens when you grab, or when you press this button, this is what happens, and we play this animation here.
Do you happen to know where that node set is in Blender? I've never seen this.
Yeah, so there's a library called Behave Nodes, and I think it's where the Blender nodes, all the new node stuff.
Yeah, geometry nodes.
Geometry nodes, yeah. I think it's related, but maybe not the same thing. So I'm not sure. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. We'll look into it.
Yeah. And I see Jim has a question. Sorry, Jim. I didn't see you there.
Yeah, when that little can like fell out of the vending machine and went on the floor, I assume there's nothing set up so that you would step on it and, you know, kick it or anything like that. I assume there's just nothing for that, right?
Yeah, especially since we don't have legs and hubs. No,
Yeah.
but yeah, no. You can do things with the interaction nodes where you could say like, if the player position is within range of this thing, then send it flying to look like we kicked it or something. Yeah. So
Okay.
yeah, that's all possible. But yeah, you'd have to sort of like, program that in with the scripting.
This is
Okay.
a game changer, though.
Huge. Yeah, I think it's such a game changer for hubs. Here's another fun one Jim did. Is hot dog. Kind of playing off that old meme. Not hot dog. Yeah. So yeah, just a lot of fun stuff we can do. And another one where Jim has created a UI that's just basically attached to the player's face. So it's kind of like so it's a UI that works in VR, and he's got a timer and thing on it. So yeah, I mean, yeah, there's just so much we could potentially do with this. So I think to make it work, though, we're gonna really need a lot of community support, and we're gonna need people coming in, and I'm hopeful that like we have a communication channel now with the Blender Foundation directly. So I'm hopeful that they'll want to kind of help us signal boost some of this work. And also like Kronos has reached out to us too, and we'll be using some of this for their marketing material potentially, which is great to help us get the word out.
This is awesome. This is a lot of stuff I didn't even realize was possible with Blender.
Yeah, and Jim, did you have any?
Yeah, I was wondering, you've got all these people jumping into these environments. Is there anything built into the system that provides like anti-harassment where you can, push a button and just get away from those people or...
Yes, love that question. Yeah, so we have a couple of safeguards. There's the ability to hide anyone, and that will just zap them from your local environment. So if anyone's harassing you, you can just select that person and hide them, and then that will effectively remove them from your reality. So that's like the immediate thing you can do. There's also moderation tools for admins, so they could kick someone from a space. They could mute someone. We could completely turn off text and voice. Yeah, so there's a couple of tools. There's a personal space invader, we call it, where you'll turn transparent when someone's near you. So there's things like that too.
When you hide someone, is it vice versa? Do you disappear from their view as well?
No, you'll still be in their view, but you just won't have any sense that they exist anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So it is bad. So like one bad thing from that is if you accidentally hide someone, it could be very confusing.
Yeah.
Because they'll be like talking to you. So yeah, but like so that's happened to me like maybe a handful of times in all the hours that I've been in Hubs, which is I've been in Hubs way too long. But,
interesting.
Yeah.
It might be necessary to have a reciprocal, some sort of icon on that user that has hidden you, so you know you are hidden to that person.
Oh yeah. Oh, I that's a great idea. There's definitely some UX fixes for that that we really should explore especially like with regards to the hide. And I'd love that to live in. We have a platform called Mozilla Connect where we can make suggestions like that, and that would be a really good one for Connect.
So even if the developer doesn't do anything, there still is that mechanism built in there that allows people some sort of salvation.
Yes. Yeah. So and as a designer, I think that's really nice that you don't have to. Yeah, you have all these features baked in, right? Yeah. So you do have that already ready to go.
Okay, great. Thanks.
Cool. So yeah, I do have a hard stop at 11:30, so I want to make sure I get these resources out to you all. If you wanted to learn more about building things in Hubs or general WebXR, the WebXR Discord is a great place for just learning about WebXR, and has like a really nice community. The Hubs Discord, of course, is there. We have events, we have office hours. You can learn from Jim and Christian, who are amazing artists, and they're just in there teaching people all the time. And I think it's such an underutilized resource that I'm always trying to encourage people. Like, they're right there. Like, Jim worked on Tomb Raider. Like, like, it's great. And then also the XR Design Discord run by Daniel Marquise is a really great place too if you're just focused on design. And then we have the Creator Labs tutorials as well, and that's all linked there for you on that slide. Jim, Dom, and Christian are amazing. Yes, Mira, 100% agree. I've learned so much from them. Yeah, Jim basically taught me how to Blender, and Christian too. Like before, when I was a community member, not on the team, like even Jim would just take me into like Hubs rooms and show me cool things in Blender. So yeah.
Is there any way that I mean, we can invite them to teach or kind of give us some, I don't know, speaker events, or maybe, I don't know, create courses. Yeah,
We should.
Yeah, it's just like my thoughts, because I find out this is such an amazing tools, especially like the build. I mean, I know that a lot of people said that metaverse is dead this year, but I think it's just limited to right now. I believe in the future it's possible. It's just right now is just not the right time for it to grow really big. So I do believe that slowly, if we can kind of promote the how to build this and make it so easy to learn, then yeah, I believe more people jump in and create contents, and then more needs, more people use it. And I believe that we need to make more people to access to the tools and how to create it, so it will become bigger and bigger, and then we all benefit. Yeah.
Totally. And exactly related to that topic, this is Three.js, the library that Hubs is built on. Downloads per month from last year, I think it's almost doubled from like 2 million to 4 million. Yeah, from NPM here. I posted some stats back May 4th recently. I was just looking at that the other day, and yeah, it's really, this library in particular, which is an open source library, has sort of exploded recently. So it seems like the demand to create in 3D at least is still very strong on the web.
I think it's less that the metaverse died and more that the overhypening of it finally popped. That's all. We're back to a reality check, and it's still developing.
Yeah. And we're still.
I absolutely agree.
Totally. Yeah. Still getting that like incremental progress, I think, and I think that's the key, right? We're getting a little better every year.
Yeah, I mean, is there any way that, for example, like the reason why I use Unity is because if I use Unity, I can export to different device. But now I have to learn like a Blender, using Blender way to do things. Is there any way we can just use one tools and for all, or I just have to learn other tools? I'm a lazy person. I just want to do one thing and export to different things and done. Is Mozilla Hub thinking about working with Unity, or they are just no?
I mean, at this point, you know, partnerships. Sorry, let me mute my other self. And I'll stop sharing so we can just. Okay, sorry. Yeah, I think at this point, you know, the Hubs team would love to partner with like everybody, but I don't know what that would look like. Yeah, and like how do we like kind of make a tool that just like does everything for us? You know, I'm not sure what the answer to that is.
Anybody has any questions?
Oh, I still didn't see how to apply that shader, that pool caustics shader.
I'm so sorry. I totally forgot about that. Yeah. So that is using, it's not a shader. It's like a trick. So he's using something called UV scroll, which is just a component. It's a component like that you'll find in the Blender add-on. And it's just scrolling over the material.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And then he's layering it in a clever way to make it look like it's like, reflected there.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I mean, I figured it was just panning UVs, but that's normally handled in the shader level. So.
Yep.
Right on.
Does this mean in the future Mozilla Hubs will want their community to essentially bypass Spoke? Yeah, Mira, that's a good question. So Spoke hasn't had meaningful commits in about 2 years. It just hasn't had a lot of attention from the Hubs team. So I think we're leaning into the Blender workflow because at a certain point, we can't build all those features into Spoke like that we need. And Blender just kind of has everything already. So I wonder if we could do some kind of happy medium where we use a Blender app that's just very specific to building these experiences for the web. But yeah, right now the flow we're promoting is the Blender workflow. I would love for Spoke still works, but it's just I think it's really meant to be a compositing tool rather than like the main creation tool.
I will say this about Blender Flow, and Dominique, to your point about learning different avenues, Blender tends to be at the beginning of most of the paths. So if you learn to do most of the things in Blender, making your lighting and getting everything you want, you can simply export it out to any game engine you want very quickly and then add on from there.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Yeah, a long time ago, I remember back in 2018, I asked one company founder, the game company founder, I asked him like, oh, if I want to learn 3D, which one should I learn, Maya or Blender? He said that, oh, definitely Maya, because it's a pipeline. If you learn it, it's everything. So that's why I learned Maya. I feel I should learn Blender because it's free. And now Maya is so pricey. And so I was a little scared falling away. And then also the supporting group. Blender definitely is better because if you want anything, you Google it. And pretty much there's always tutorials teach it. So I find out Blender is such a good community. And I really think that I need to learn Blender. The thing about Blender is that they have so many shortcut keys. And then for Maya, you just put a number and it's absolutely that number. But Blender, you need to think about, oh, this is the key and it will rotate and everything. And I feel like I was like, yeah, I need to practice that.
I think Maya was a standard for a long time and was the professional way to go, and Blender wasn't taken as seriously until recently. And I think that's probably by the time your professor said that, Maya was the way to go, and now it's Blender.
Yeah.
How is Blender set up with regards to graphic processors? I assume Maya is more tailored towards the professional type graphics processors as opposed to gaming processors. What about Blender?
I think Blender handles any type of you just go into the settings and you have a different types. You have CUDA, optics, and there's another one I never pay attention to. There's a few in there that you can go, and then underneath, you just check your processor. And I think okay. I don't know what level of processor you're talking about, like A100s or something. I don't know.
Well, the processors have different firmware for the different types of applications. Like if you want to use CAD, then the firmware of the processors for the professional processors are set up to work with CAD specifically, gotcha. But not the gaming machines. And if you're going to do floating point calculations, then traditionally the professional processors have been better at that. That is intentionally crippled in the gaming processors. So I'm just curious about that stuff. But Dom, maybe you can get ChatGPT to tell you how to use it.
Yeah, I am still learning. And also, I just had a really good conversation yesterday with somebody I just met on LinkedIn. He liked my post, so I just reached out to that person. And that person kind of are interested in being one of our mentors. And his kind of specialty is to build a world in Horizon. And he said that, oh, maybe, you know, for the mentor consulting session, then that mentor can, you know, become the avatar inside that build world, because he owns an agency which helps people to build a world in Horizon. So I think that makes sense because you are self-promoting by making your office inside virtual world. And I think Matt, I always think that maybe we can not, instead of jumping into Zoom, we can jump into, I don't know, Mozilla Hub or Horizon, right? Instead of we meet, like everyone is a small square, we can meet in Mozilla Hub, and Matt will be an alien floating, and we just sit under there and by the pool, right? And hopefully there are some drinks. Yeah, so yeah, I was thinking about how can we kind of create, like which tools is great for we to change the format instead of in Zoom. I know for people to have a headset, it's a little hard because I know probably 50% of this group right now, 18 people, probably 9 people has the headset. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, the rest of us still learning. And yeah. So any solutions, Matt, you think that we can use Mozilla Hub, but what's the subscription? Every time when I think about subscription, for enterprise, I'm always a little scared because we don't have revenue right now. Any free things we can use?
Yeah, you could just use the free Mozilla instance. Yeah, you just spin up a room there, and yeah, you know, you won't be able to brand it, but it's still, you know, very usable. And send a link, and everyone's in. So
what's the limit on number of connections on a freebie like that?
Right now it's still 25
yeah,
to a room, or 30. Yeah, it kind of, but it, you know, it depends on avatars seen, and
Sure.
you know, how many hands are we tracking and all that.
Yeah.
So you don't need to set up any sort of account whatsoever, just to visit.
Yeah, no account. Yeah, you just jump right in.
That's an advantage, because I'm getting so tired of these things where I have to set up an account for everything.
Yeah, and download some software and all that. Yeah.
I will say if the choice is between somewhere like Horizons and somewhere like Hubs, I would immediately vote for Hubs just for the accessibility. Horizons doesn't even have a desktop client, and you know, yeah, not everyone who even owns a headset wants to always put it on. Sometimes I like connecting on PC. I can work on my other monitor while I'm chatting and, you know, enjoying the show or whatever.
I may have missed the subscription you're referring to. I may have walked away. Is that fairly easy to find if I Google it? Hubs subscription, then I'll get a tiered pricing.
Very easy. Yeah.
Subscription. Okay, subscription's the word. Okay,
just
good.
Yeah, go to the main page, and you'll see. And we are moving into a more tiered, like we'll have like some different versions.
Okay.
So we've released this like initial experimental version. We've learned some things from that, and now we're making some iterations on that. So those are
enterprises we were talking. Yeah,
exactly.
There is also a self-hosted, so you could do that if you wanted to look for something bigger, right? So
exactly. Yeah, thanks, Joyce. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and people,
I'm
there's
sorry.
a whole channel in our Discord about that too. Yeah.
Self-hosting, that's what we're talking about.
Hosting.
Yeah, so you could even there's even like a utility for AWS where you can spin up for Mozilla Hubs.
Oh, that's yeah, very cool.
And that could be your enterprise scenario, and then from there you would have admin backend to be able to create scenes, create rooms.
Right. Well, all I can tell Dominique is you need to invite Zuckerberg to the next meeting, because it's everything he's been losing his money on is what we're talking about. That's very exciting.
If I can invite Zuckerberg, then, you know, yeah, I mean, I believe that, yeah, like I wish you know, like before I told myself before leaving Meta, I need to say hi to Zuckerberg, but I forgot to do that. So I have a chance to connect with Zuckerberg. It just
we have to go down. Yeah,
I think he just won a gold medal, right, in in that thing. I don't know. It's not judo or something.
Oh, I see. Yeah, his little thingy.
I think he is probably more like into that. Maybe I
Right,
need
right,
to,
right.
join his class so I can talk to him.
What? Zuckerberg just won a gold medal in judo. What is going on?
Yeah, something like that. Like, yeah, I think because I think a long time ago, TikTok CEO was on the court, right? And a lot of people said that he's hot or
Oh
something.
yeah,
So
in
that's why.
jujitsu.
I think
Wow.
I did. I think I did see that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think Zuckerberg probably wants to change his image from from
The
more like
idea of that guy doing jujitsu makes me laugh so hard. I'm sure he's great, but wow, that's good.
Yeah, it's impressive.
yeah.
So
Hey,
does
Matt,
the idea of that guy claiming what the metaverse is. So there you go.
I think it can change some vibes. Yeah.
May I interject really quick? And I'm going to paste a message in one more time. If anybody's interested, I included my email. I am working on a project with a client. Think of the Kool-Aid guy jumping through the brick wall in our early days of animation. That's what I want to create. And for a client of mine, we're chomping at the bit, wanting to make that a centerpiece of the brand moving forward. I could explain more. So there's the email. It's my last name with work replacing Lund. Easy to find me. Please reach out if you know anybody or you're interested. Thank you.
Yeah, Tom, I'm really interested, and I
Okay.
will.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good. Thank
we
you.
can
Yeah,
talk
we take
about
that offline.
Yeah, we can take that.
Absolutely. And thank you, everyone, the host and the presenter. Thank you. Really awesome.
Yeah,
Learned a
and
lot.
yeah, Matt, I know you are busy, and we can, sync offline and see how we can promote Mozilla Hub. And I know you are in the education space, so yeah, I mean, hopefully we can kind of come up with some ways, maybe, because what I'm thinking is that there will be a track for XReality Academy certification for no-code, low-code kind of immersive environment build, something like that, for people to jump in and start creating things. And our target audience is beginners, so which is perfect. Yeah, so I know Matt has a hard stop at 11:30, which we still have 4 minutes. Wow, what's that?
Yeah, I'm going to a children's party and I'm dressing as the Green Goblin for them.
Wow, that is so cool. That is so cool.
So,
Yes.
yeah, that's why I have to leave a little
Yeah,
early.
I think that is an important and cannot miss event.
Best
I
reason to leave.
gotta cut holes in the eyes though. I can't see it all out of this thing. So
it's funny.
yeah, wish me luck. It's spandex, and
Wow, very serious. Yeah.
Yeah.
You need to dress up. Yeah. Okay. So anybody has any questions? We have 3 minutes.
yeah, I was just wondering, the rendering, is this done on the client side or is there some done on the server side or what?
Yeah, all the physics simulation is all done locally on the client side.
Okay.
So that's another limitation, right? Like we don't do like networked physics or anything.
No dice games.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can, but it's just not going to be like perfectly synced.
Yeah, not very real time.
Yeah. But yeah, I saw Christian did one where he like made he used the video. So we have another component called video texture target, and you can like basically have a virtual camera in the space. And they're doing like an AI spike right now where they're doing like Dungeons and Dragons and hubs, and it's really fun. And we haven't shared any of that yet. But you rolled the, like, by the way, yeah. But he has it so you roll the dice and everyone can see the outcome of the dice on the screen there.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So when are all these cool things that you guys working on actually get to be trickled out and released like that?
To be real, yeah, that's a great question, Joyce.
Or how do we get in?
Yeah,
on beta
how do we get on the
testing?
testing or the in or whatever? Yeah,
come into the Discord. Like Imaginer, who hosts Taco Tuesday testing, is a testing session. He just did a pass with the interactivity stuff. So he was testing it, and if you went there, it would be a great place to like play with it. And he usually gets kind of like inside access to all this stuff. He's a maintainer of the Blender add-on. So he hosts that meetup there in the Discord.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Thank you, Matt, for speaking for the event. And we learned a lot from you and see Mozilla Hub. I remember a long time ago, I jumped into Mozilla Hub. It was, it's bare bone, but now it's like I saw all the interaction. And I was like, wow, it's just totally a different monster now. So I'd love to, think, and maybe we can talk about how can we promote Mozilla Hub. Now we have 5.5K members across 4 meetups. I just acquired extra 3. So we can definitely, send a message out in California. The entire California. So thank you so much. And I know you have a very important meeting and you have to dress up. Okay, thank you so much. And see you guys pretty soon. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
Thank
thanks,
you.
man.